tallgrass prairie is the most threatened landform in the world. The National Park Service has about 400 different entities in the Park Service system, and nowhere did they have tallgrass prairie. And it was a goal of conservationists and the National Park Service since the 1930s to have a prairie park. And the early efforts were in the Flint Hills of Kansas, and they all failed. And in 1984, an effort began here. Conservationists realized that the opportunity to buy some land like this was once in a lifetime, if that. And that if that opportunity weren't taken advantage of, they would soon be lost.
You know, we started to look at what do we have to do to completely restore the prairie. Fire, we had to change the fire regime a little bit so that we're not just burning every spring. But we also had to think about what else was here that was missing. And the biggest piece of the puzzle was bison. And bison are a critical part of the prairie. Their grazing helps to maintain the prairie. And so if we didn't have bison back out here, we really weren't going to be able to have a fully functional version of the tallgrass prairie. There's a long history with bison, and historically, when European settlers came here, there were an estimated 60 million bison in the Great Plains. Over time, they were hunted to almost near extinction, to the point where there were less than 1,000 animals. Just over the course of 2 generations, the species was almost wiped out. A local rancher near Bartlesville, Kenneth Adams, had a small herd of bison that he was managing, and they were doing all right. But one of our staff went to him and said, would you consider donating your herd of bison to the Nature Conservancy to help us start this restoration process? And amazingly, he said, I'll do it. And so he donated 300 bison to the Nature Conservancy to start the whole process. We named it after his daughter, Christina, and that's what got us started here. We want to have a healthy herd. We have the bison here because they're an important part of the prairie. We want to make sure that we have a healthy herd. And so a big part of this process is giving them the vaccines that they need. And one of which is against a disease called Mycoplasma bovis. It's a disease that cattle get, and it can be pretty hard on them. It basically eats up their lungs until they shrivel up and die. And about 5 years ago, I think it was, we actually noticed some weight drop in our herd, and it was very concerning. We discovered that they had Mycoplasma bovis, and there's very little research about this disease, even how to treat it in a bison herd. Most money, as you can imagine, goes towards research related to cattle, because that's where the business angle is. And so we were in a situation where we were trying to figure out what we could do with this disease that can have mortality rates up to 50 or 70% of a herd. So we were in a bit of a panic. It was a really trying time, but Bob Hamilton, he managed that extremely well, and it ended up being a real success story for how to manage a disease like that. And that's something we, of course, have shared with all the other bison herds within the Conservancy. And through this, there's a whole bison network out there of ranchers that raise bison. We want to share that information with them so that if they ever have this problem, they know how to address it as best as possible.